Hi, my name is Alyssa Chambers and I'm here to do my makeup and talk about astrology. Today we are going to talk about the houses, but we're only going to cover the first 4 because it's a lot of information to cover. I'm going to talk about the houses while I do my makeup, but just know that this is kind of like the way that I learned it best. So if it doesn't make sense to you, then maybe read something else. But I've read quite a few books and I've talked to quite a few different people and I've read a lot of charts and it seems to be pretty accurate, and it's the best way I can describe it to make the most sense for everyone, if that makes sense. So just think about that. Sometimes people interpret things differently and astrology is very much that type of thing. So if this doesn't like resonate with you, then I totally get it. Makes sense to me. But yeah, I'm gonna get started. Your houses are those little pie sections of your chart, and if you don't have your time, then it's wrong. So don't even pay attention to it, honestly. The planets are aspects about people. And the planets are always the same, which is why I taught the planets first. Because if you have the planets memorized, then they're never going to change up on you and they're always going to be the same, and you don't have to worry about deciphering the planets. They will always be that way. Your planets never change, but the signs that are next to the planets do change depending on when you were born. The signs tell you how you do those aspects of your planets, and the houses kind of tell you why. So when you look at your chart, you will see the different signs around the outside, and that's how your houses are turned in your little pie chart. But it doesn't matter, because whether it says Libra or whatever as your first house is always represented by Aries. That's the underlying energy that goes into it. I'm going to cover the first 4 houses just for time's sake and for making the most sense. And they go in the same order that the zodiac does. All the way that I did all the order of the signs is the way that the houses go. So if you go back and you watch Aries and then you watch Taurus, it's the same meanings as the signs are for the houses. So you can go back and watch each individual one of those, or I'm going to explain them all individually, each house, which also I feel like helps interpret the signs again. It's just a more thorough way of looking at things. Here's the part that some people might disagree with me with, but it makes so much sense, it's crazy. The way that I think about the houses is as if you were going through life. Some people think of it as things you had to learn in like past lives and stuff like that. If you believe in that, then that's fine, but it doesn't matter because they still can be taken as different parts of your life and going through life, and it makes so much sense that way. It's crazy when you start to think about it and you start to learn about it. Then you'll notice the tendencies that people have when they have different aspects in those houses. Another thing that you'll notice is they always go in the same order, from 1 2 3 4 and then 5 6 7 8. In 4s, they go through the 4 elements. They always start with fire, which is really smart because it's passion, it's the spark, it's the beginning of things. Followed by earth, followed by air, followed by water. Now there are a million cheat sheets out there, and I went over a ton of them. And I actually have a couple saved in my phone from when I was first learning. So if you need to have a cheat sheet and write things down, there's nothing wrong with that. You can draw or find a little pie chart with 12 little slices in it and do first house, second house, and go around until you get it right, because it's learning. No one expects you to like know this off the top of your head. That's crazy. We'll start first with Aries. So Aries is your first house. It doesn't matter what your thing says. It's Aries is the backing source of it. So anything you have in there is going to have Aries-like tendencies. So if your sun is in there and you are a water sign, you're going to be a more passionate water sign or a passionate earth sign or anything like that. But you also have to remember that Aries is the first of the zodiac. It's like a fresh born baby. Now I know that's probably going to make some people mad, but it's true. Aries is like a fresh born baby. And when you're born, what do? You don't know what to do. It's me, I, competition, look at me, because you don't know any other way. You're a fresh born baby. So I think that Aries sometimes deserve to get a little bit more slack than their cut, because it's rough. They don't mean, I mean, sometimes they definitely do mean to do it, but they don't mean to be that way. They just can't help it. Everything to them is so passionate and so, like, even trivial things, because they don't know how else to be. It's like a baby. And Aries, I don't care if I'm offending you, because I have a bunch of stuff in my first house. Like my Mercury, which is why I'm speaking this way. The first house reminds me a lot of people's rising signs, because it's almost like wearing your heart on your sleeve. When you're first born, everything is so raw and emotional, and that's the way Aries is. And it's everything in your first house is going to be like things people notice about you, your physical appearance, the way you have any planets in there are going to be the first thing that people notice about you. For example, if you have Mercury in your first house, you're going to speak in a little bit more of an aggressive way, because you want to be heard and you will be heard. So Aries, or your first house, is leadership qualities. It's how you take charge. It's how you're the boss. It's how you get people to notice you. That's the best way I can describe the first house and anything in it. Also, it is your childhood and how you are raised and how things influence you in a childlike or baby-like way. So it could be where you get childish and where you are a little bit too much sometimes. Things you need to work on in that aspect of your life. So I feel like the next thing people learn in life is touch. And your second house is Taurus, and Taurus is very much so touch. Feel, it's possessions, things that you own, it's things that you like to have, things that you value, and anything. Like when you're a baby and you're fresh born, when you start to accumulate things and you start to care about things, it's all of those things, how important they are to you. So if you have Venus in your second house, that is touch, feel, food. Taurus is very much food oriented, and that's like the number one joke probably that people make about Taurus. So anything you have Venus is how you love or feel about or appreciate food. If you have Venus in your second house and it's in a water sign, then that is an emotional value towards food and touch and all of those kind of things, because water is emotion and the second house is touch and Venus is love. If you have an earth sign Venus, then you love money, honey. So Taurus is also, you know, when you're a baby, the first thing you tend to get is taken home. So it's your house, it's where you live, it's how you feel about your home, and anything that comforts you, basically. And Taurus, as we know, is an earth sign. So anything in your second house is going to be, I hate to say it, but how you feel about money at first. And when you're a child, everything is still me, me, me. So you haven't gotten to the point where you understand like sharing and stuff like that yet. So Taurus is going to be things that you are greedy about. Things that you value, that you don't like to give up and you don't like to share, and stubbornness as well, because everyone is a child. Now, if you have things in any house or you don't have anything in any house, it doesn't matter. It's still in your chart. So just because you don't have anything there doesn't mean that it doesn't affect you. It's just not something that you have anything like contradicting or going against. After you get home, essentially, you have your third house, which is Gemini. So what is the next thing that you learn in life after you learn me, 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 and touch and feel? You learn speech. And Gemini is an air sign. So that's communication. And that is where in your, life, your first step into learning how to speak and learning how to communicate. You still have to think of it in a baby kind of way though, because babies don't know how to really do anything besides like babble. Geminis are gonna get so mad, but it's really true. It's where you learn how your words can affect people. It's where you learn how to say certain things to like get what you want. It's where you start to pick up on social cues and also how you think. It's a very personal mindset, and it's kind of all about you at that point. And I find that a lot of things in your third house, or things that are Gemini signs, planets that are Gemini signs, very much end up being like all like me, me, me as well, because you're still thinking of it as like a small child or toddler at this point. And I'm really not trying to offend anyone. It's just the way that life is when you're a baby and when you're learning, is that's just how it is. That's how everyone learns and does things. You don't just wake up and you are selfless. In fact, there aren't really any signs that are completely selfless, and every single sign has flaws. There's, you learn from your mistakes, and that's the whole point. Gemini, or your third house, is where you start to figure out the world and how it works. And I hate to say, but Gemini is known a lot for playing mind games or being manipulative. But I mean, if you have an opportunity and you know that you can, some people just take it. So you're learning how the world works. You're learning what you do and don't like. You're learning how your words can affect people. You're learning all of that kind of stuff about others. You start to more notice the world around you, and it stops being so me at this point. This is where you really start to realize how things affect other people other than yourself, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be like selfless or anything at this point, but it's when you start to pick up on that kind of stuff. So Gemini is kind of like that. Your like inner thoughts and narrative starts to come to life, and you start to perceive how other people do things, and it's when you start to really learn. So now you can utilize all of the other things that you've learned so far from your first and second house, like touch and stuff like that, and that's how you start to interpret your world. So anything in your third house is going to be things on how you learn, how you speak, things like that. So if somebody's Mercury is in their third house, that's how they speak and think, even more amplified. And hopefully, depending on what sign it's in, like say it's fire, then they'll be able to speak in a more passionate way while also learning from it. Or water, same thing. Where earth, it'll be more of like a touch kind of thing. So your fourth house is represented by Cancer, and it's your first kind of water sign in your chart, if you think about it. This is your first like experience with emotions and love and things like that. And Cancer is represented by moms. Like it affects how you feel about your mom, your family, because now you're noticing from your third house more people around you, and the first people that you notice are people who are your family, or people who you hold to that regard that they are family. So again, this is when you're kind of like a toddler. So it's the way that you would feel in a very like smitten or baby-like way, which Cancers are really funny like that. Like they fall in love with everyone, and they're like, hey, I just met you, but like, do you want to get married? Do you ever think about marriage? And I find this super interesting because it really does truly show the way that you feel about your family members and family and how they affect you in your life. So say that you have Scorpio, Mars in your fourth house. That's showing that you have a very deep emotional connection to people. And I find that Mars is like how you fight. So it'll be a very emotional way that you react to your family, and also that you would like throw down for them, and you hold family to a very high regard depending on how they are on your emotional scale. For instance, if you do have like a Scorpio Mars and your family has done you wrong, you will probably be fine if you never spoke to them again. It wouldn't even bother you because that's just how you are. Cancer can also be how you feel about babies and being a family, being a part of a family, whether or not you want to have family in the future. What's really interesting and a lot of people debate about is the whole nature versus nurture. So do you think of Cancer or your fourth house having traits like that that show that you've had past trauma, is it because your chart said it would and that's nature? Or are you going to be that way because that was going to happen and that's nurture? That's like a huge debate for me. I can look at someone's chart and say, like, I don't usually say, if they have like friends around, I don't usually say like, who hurt you, but you can be like, who hurt you? It's rough. It's a rough thing to have. So you have to also think that it is represented, I think of it as a toddler kind of way, but if you're older, obviously you're not a toddler. So it's going to be how it affects you later on in life as well. All of these are going to be how they affect you later on in life. Through your entire life, these are going to be reoccurring lessons that happen. So say you have Aries, Mars in your 4th house. That means that if somebody hurts your family, you're going to throw down. If you have any kind of fire in your 4th house, Mars, that means that you hold your family in a highly respectable way. If you have Earth, Mars, or Venus, or any of that in your 4th house, then that shows that you like to be the provider. So that would be somebody who would be like, you want to be the person a lot of times who will buy things. You might be someone who likes to buy people gifts or likes to take care of people. It's very nurturing a lot of times. If you have a water anything inside of your 4th house, Mercury, it would be speech. But Venus and Mars would mean that for your family, you like to be their emotional, like, stability. You connect to them on a very emotional level and you hold them on an emotional level. That is the first 4 signs, going from fire to water. Next I will do the next 4, but I know it's a lot to handle, so I am going to post that next, and I'm going to try, once I edit and everything, to go back and put timestamps of when each house is, so you can go back and refer to it. But it helps to have like a little pie chart. If you want to make a little pie chart, that really helps me. I keep one saved in my phone, honestly. But I would call the first 4 like the toddler stages of your life, and then it goes into the next section, kind of like teenage years into like your 20s, and then the rest is like the rest of your life. Obviously, depending on how old you are, changes how things are, but it's how you interpret things throughout your life and how these things are going to affect you in different ways. So it's very interesting to me, and just make sure your time is right on your chart, and that's the most important thing. Also, if you like this video, please subscribe. I really hate saying that, but I feel like if I never hear anyone say that, then I never think to do it. So, yeah. Thanks for watching.